Do yourself a favor and listen up, brothers. What you're about to hear comes straight out of my book, Builder vs. Bamboozler, Volume 1. Today you're listening to part 1 of a 3-part reading from chapter 13, because this one wakes men up. It shows them why women test, why desire fades, and why good men lose their thrones. If this chapter hits you hard, and it will, you'll find the link in the description, and the QR code on the screen will take you straight to the book on Amazon. This isn't entertainment, this is masculine clarity. This is the difference between leading in a relationship and losing yourself inside of one. So settle in. Chapter 13, Polarity versus Parity. Let's begin. You're going to hear a lot about leadership and leading women in this chapter. So let me be explicitly clear for my knuckle draggers out there. Before you go stomping around like a dollar store tyrant, leadership is not domination. It's leading by example. It's not barking orders, raising your voice, or trying to strong arm your way into respect. Real leadership starts with governing yourself. Your discipline, your standards, your direction, your consistency. It's how you live when no one's watching. A builder doesn't lead by forcing a woman into frame. He leads by being the kind of man whose life is so aligned, so steady, and so intentional that following him feels natural, not negotiated. Most men have been fed a soft, cozy lie about love. They've been told that the healthiest love is the love that is the most even, the most fair, the most 50-50. They've been told that partnership is supposed to feel like a group project where everyone has the same vote, the same weight, the same influence, that if you are a good modern man, you do not lead, you do not take charge, you do not set the tone, you negotiate, you ask, you check in, you remove your sharp edges so she never feels a moment of intensity. You're endlessly available, perpetually agreeable, and consistently humble. You treat her like she's your sister or your coworker, and she may even think that's what she wants, but it still leaves her flat. This sounds nice in theory. It also sounds like a man slowly convincing a woman to stop being attracted to him while they both drift toward the same sexual pole. Two people trying so hard to be equal that they accidentally become energetic twins, both of them becoming figuratively neutralized, like two magnets with the same charge. They don't pull together, they repel, slide apart, lose tension. Half man, half woman. Polarity collapses. And here's the first hard truth of this chapter. Love can be equal, but desire is never 50-50. You can share bills, kids, routines, real estate, and a calendar. You cannot both sit on the same throne. You cannot split the crown. What no one told you is that polarity and parity are not the same thing. Polarity is the natural energetic attraction between the masculine and the feminine. It's the charge, the current, the gravitational pull that makes her soften and makes you rise. Parity is sameness. It is the attempt to flatten masculine and feminine into one genderless, frictionless, nobody leads and nobody follows, endlessly negotiable blob. Polarity ignites desire. Parity strangles it in good intentions. The builder understands this. He understands that he can love a woman deeply, regard her as an equal human being, honor her mind, honor her gifts, her calling, and still refuse to let the relationship slide into roommate arrangement where neither of them is leading, neither of them is surrendering, and neither of them is turned on. He also knows when to bow out. When a woman insists on holding too much of the masculine frame, when every decision turns into a tug-of-war, when the polarity dies in the name of fairness, the builder doesn't argue with that energy. He steps aside. He knows what he wants and what he doesn't want, and he's not going to spend years grinding through friction that shouldn't exist in the first place. The bamboozler, on the other hand, hears the cultural sermon about equality, panics about being seen as controlling, and rips out every masculine root he has. He's terrified about being called selfish. He's terrified about being called toxic. He's terrified of women saying, "You're too much," so he becomes less. And the second he becomes less, she becomes less interested. Many women today have been fed a steady diet of mixed messages, told to be soft but never dependent, nurturing but never needy, beautiful but never submissive. Modern culture has pushed them into a state of constant masculine posture just to survive. Chase careers, outpace men, lead families, hold emotional order when no one else will. And women are rising to the occasion. Combine that with the decades of men being domesticated into the parity lie, taught that leadership is control, that polarity is oppression, and you end up with women forced into masculine energy simply because men around them refuse to hold it. The builder's done his work. He doesn't collapse into this chaos. He doesn't lecture her. He doesn't resent her. He simply recognizes the mismatch. He knows that the feminine cannot blossom in a climate of competition, so he moves with patience and discernment. He vets. He screens. He waits for the woman whose energy is naturally softens around grounded strength. Because he knows she exists, and when she shows up, he doesn't have to drag her back into her femininity. His presence does that for her. When a feminine woman finally meets a man who carries true presence, she doesn't just admire it, she anchors to it. His calm nervous system becomes her ground wire. His steadiness gives her permission to feel. The more she trusts that he won't flinch, the more she allows herself to be all of herself, joyful, fiery, teary, electric, powerful, messy, radiant, raw. Her Her emotions move like weather across the mountain because she knows the mountain isn't going anywhere. She can rage, cry, laugh, be fierce, or melt without fear that he'll punish her for being alive. As long as she stays within respect, no cruelty, no contempt, he doesn't take her storms personally. He lets her fly like a kite in the wind, knowing that she'll always need to come back to ground. And when she does, she finds him there, calm, unshaken, offering the same quiet gravity that she fell for in the first place. That is polarity at work. That is safety without submission. That is the builder's gift. Parity killing polarity is the paradox men are not warned about. The more a man abandons his masculine frame to make the woman feel safe, the less safe she actually feels. Because a woman doesn't feel safe in a relationship where the man has no center. She does not feel safe in a home where the man will reverse himself at the first sign of her emotional weather. She does not feel safe with a man who says, "Whatever you want, babe," not because he's generous, but because he's afraid. Fear masquerading as kindness is still fear. Weakness wrapped in romantic language is still weakness. A woman might appreciate your softness in friendship, in co-parenting, in logistics, but her feminine is not open to a man who collapses. She's open to a man who holds, and holding does not mean tolerating disrespect. It's actually better for both of them if, when she crosses that line, whether through subtle passive aggression or open contempt, he calls it out. He calls it out in a magnanimous, grounded way. But here's the qualifier most men miss. He can only call it out clearly and cleanly if his side of the street is clean too. You don't demand respect with hypocrisy dripping off your boots. You don't enforce standards you don't live by. When your frame is solid, when your behavior is congruent, when your house is in order, then you can say, "Hey, I noticed this. That's not how I treat you, and I won't be treated that way." No yelling, no emotional spillage, just steady truth delivered with unshakable calm, and she'll feel it. She'll know you're right. And from there, he must be willing to stand on that boundary like his life depends on it, to hold the line without flinching, to walk away if he must, to be the one who says he needs space and let her feel the gravity of his absence, not as punishment, but as clarity. His respect is not for sale. His peace is not negotiated. His self-worth is not up for debate. This is leadership. This is polarity. And that is why she relaxes. Not because he overpowers her, but because he anchors her. That is why the title of this chapter has two blades, polarity or parity. Hold the throne or lose the queen. These are not separate ideas. They're the same road. The man who tries to build a 50-50 love in every category ends up slowly abdicating his throne. He begins to think, if I make everything perfectly democratic, she'll never be unhappy. She'll never feel unseen. She'll never feel disempowered. So she'll never leave. He doesn't realize that what she was drawn to in the first place was not bureaucratic fairness. She was drawn to his edge, his decisiveness, his "I know where I'm going," his "do not worry, I'll handle this." She was drawn to the fact that she could lean on him for this part of her life. But when he starts treating her like a co-CEO of desire, polarity leaves the building. The builder takes the path of being willing to be misinterpreted as strong, as certain, as directional. It's a path of masculine responsibility. It is the path of choosing the throne even when a part of you wants to let go and sit with the servants because it feels safer down there and no one complains about your decisions. And if he really is leading his life in the most aligned, disciplined, self-directed way, the kind of way a man can look in the mirror with respect for himself, then he doesn't need to justify, over-explain, or soften the edges to make his leadership more palatable. He knows the path is right because he's built it with integrity. He can hold conviction without explanation, without slipping into that apologetic, unpolarizing mode that turns a king into a committee member. It is the path of saying, "This is the man I am. This is the direction I'm moving. This is what I will protect. This is what I'll tolerate. This is the standard." And then holding that standard in the face of her tests, her moods, her storms, her season. That is not cruelty. That is divine masculine. The Bamboozler takes the opposite road. Instead of standing firm, he trades self-respect for proximity. He learns to go with the flow, not out of ease, but out of fear. Because rocking the boat might mean she withholds the only currency he still values, her attention, her body, her approval. So he accepts crumbs. A night of distracted sex here, a half-hearted kiss there, a moment of warmth when she feels pity instead of passion. Each time she pulls away, he lowers the bar a little more just to keep something coming in. And every time he does, she loses more respect. The less respect she feels, the less desire she has. The less desire she has, the smaller the crumbs become, until he's starving for validation in a relationship he built around scarcity. Brothers, this has been part 1 of chapter 13, Polarity versus Parity, from my book, Mr. Help Loops, Builder versus Bamboozler, Volume 1. If what you heard hit something real in you, if it names patterns you felt but never had the words for, this chapter goes even deeper inside the book. You'll see the QR code on the screen, and a link in the description will take you straight to your copy on Amazon. And if you're serious about leveling up and stepping out of collapse and back into leadership, clarity, and masculine ground, This book was written for you. Subscribe now because part 2 of chapter 13 drops tomorrow, and that's where the tension sharpens and the responsibility becomes unavoidable. I'm proud of you, brother. Be proud of yourself.